I would like to invite on stage Maria Ranka, the CEO of the Stockholm Chamber of Commerce, one of the most influential business organizations in Sweden. And she's very relevant to this discussion because the Chamber actually has this topic as one of their most crucial topics in discussion. Carl-Johan Westring. Carl-Johan is an advisor to government and large corporations on education reforms and corporate education for both B2B and B2G companies on a global level. Mr. Sarabjit Deb. Sarabjit started LIT's business operations in the Nordic region 17 years ago and is now the CEO of the company. Of the Nordic, sorry. A lot has been said on this topic, and with innovation in its spine, Sweden has become a hotbed for entrepreneurship and enterprise. There is a shortage of qualified personnel. Sweden, Stockholm, and its companies are struggling to get skilled labor within certain fields, ICT being the top of that list. Many of these companies look towards India and its skilled workforce. Of a total of over 3,800 visas granted to Indians last year, 3,000 were ICT specialists. I'd also like to invite Mr. Manish Kumar to the panel. Mr. Manish Kumar, as was on stage a few minutes back, comes from India. Welcome, Mr. Manish. Many of the companies look towards India, as we said, for skilled workforce. Of a total of over 3,800 visas granted to Indians last year, 3,000 were ICT specialists. About every fifth working permit that is granted in Sweden is given to an Indian computer specialist in the Stockholm region. In addition, 3,000 Indian families were granted family immigration. So 2016 has set a new roadway. A success story, you might think, but on the contrary. A recent report says Stockholm has never experienced such labor force shortage as per the second quarter of 2017, even though the data industry is booming. Furthermore, there are several cases of labor being sent back due to technicalities in the regulatory framework. Labor immigration contributes with over 10 billion SEK each year to Swedish production. An influx of highly skilled people stimulate internationalism and innovation, facilitate growth, and increase the business opportunities on a global level. What can Sweden and Stockholm City do to make it easier for Indians to come and work here? That's our topic, and I set the platform, and I invite Maria to give her first introduction to this topic.
Thank you very much. It's very, very nice to be here and to have been given the chance to say a few brief words on this very, very topical issue. But before we talk more in detail about the legal framework, the opportunities, because there are so many opportunities for talented Indians in Sweden and Stockholm, I want to zoom out and just briefly mention sort of what's going on a global scale. As have already been mentioned here, urbanization is one of the strongest forces, economic forces in the world. It happens in India, it happens in Sweden and throughout the world. And the cities that punch above their weights, they have a few features in common. They are all global. They are globally oriented, and that is very important. But there are 3 T's that you have to remember, and that is that you need to have an excellent talent pool to punch above your weight. You need to have entrepreneurs and innovative companies in the technological forefront. And talking about global openness, you also need to be open to trade. So all the cities that are really shaping the world and are providing innovative solutions to global problems, they have these 3 T's. And that is also the case with Stockholm. As we have heard, Stockholm needs talent desperately. There is a shortage of, if we just look at the IT sector, there will be a shortage of 60,000 IT specialists in 2020. Despite that, computer programmer is the single most common profession in all of the Stockholm County today. So there is a great talent pool here already, but we need more. Preparing for this, I just thought about what is it that we can offer here? Because as you mentioned, and it was also emphasized by Minister Ekström, we've had this huge influx of Indian IT engineers the last few, or for a number of years. And I guess some of you might have seen Bollywood, a love story at Gustav Adolfs torg yesterday night or the night before yesterday. And quite a few of the work permit holders were there in the audience for sure. Gustav Adolfs torg looked almost more Indian than Swedish, and that was an amazing experience. But what is it that we have to offer? From a business perspective, we are home to a very, very interesting business community. We're the fastest growing capital in Europe, and if you look at innovation rankings, we top a number of them. The quality of life here is, of course, also something that we could add to the list of opportunities. To just sum up, Sweden introduced a legal framework in 2008 that gave us one of the most competitive legislations when it comes to work permits in the world. Sweden became very, very open to labor migration. That being said, there are technical hassles that needs to be fixed. And you are probably already aware of waiting times and what was alluded to, the fact that we have deported competency because of minor mistakes that have been made, because it's so hard to actually know what you need to do in terms of the insurances you need and so on and so forth. These issues are very, very, very high on the political agenda right now, and I am confident my organization and our members have pushed very, very hard for the government, for the parliament, and for the agencies involved, like the Swedish Migration Agency, for example, to fix this. So I'm confident that we will also move forward and improve the application of the legal framework. But if you just look at legislation, it's top-notch. It's probably the most competitive legislation in the world.
Thank you very much, Maria. With that being said, of the need for skilled labor here in Stockholm, I turn to Mr. Manish Kumar, MD and CEO of Skill Development in India. I think it's, I think the whole demographic dividend in India, skill development as a focus, I think this falls right in place of what would be best from an Indian perspective. The stage is yours.
Good afternoon and namaskar. If Sweden today has the fastest growing capital in the world, then perhaps we have the fastest growing human resource in the world at this point of time. So as you correctly said, we are in the middle of a demographic divide. And I'm told that last time, when we were in this kind of a situation, we ended up with Taj Mahal. So this time, it starts in 1910, the demographic divide, it ends in 2050. If we end up with another Taj Mahal, there was a plan for two, if you remember, there was a black Taj Mahal to be built, then probably you would want a bit of Swedish imprint on it. So I guess we are, in that sense, quite well poised. I want to put a bit about National Skill Development Corporation, created in 2009 by Government of India to take advantage of this huge bulge in the youth population that we have. At this point of time, we have, from 2009 onwards, have had more than 350 private partners whose energies we have harnessed resulting in more than 10,000 training centers across India. We train about 4 million people, youths, every year in about 40 different sectors, covering maybe 2014 different job roles across India. So that's the broad range within which we work. The commitment of Government of India is very clear from the fact that we have a loan portfolio of almost 0.5 billion US dollar up to 2020. That's the plan as of now. And $2 billion US dollar in terms of grant. That's what is going. And I'm only talking of the national government as of now. There's perhaps an equal amount of money which comes from the state government also. So therefore, huge amount of investment being made by the government. We are also looking at quality and standards in a very deep way for the first time, and have, as I said, more than 2014 qualification pack, as we call it. All of them very industry oriented, and therefore I think if there's a need in Sweden, then we definitely would have the ability to provide help. Now, what are the different sectors in which we work? I'll just read through some of them so that it gives a sense of how deeply we work in different sectors. In the primary sector, we are there in the agriculture, food processing, life science, green jobs. These are the few things. In secondary, automotive, rubber, gems and jewelries, electronics, leather, capital goods, aviation, construction. If I keep on reading, there are 19 of them. In the tertiary sector, we are in security, retail, IT, media, health, telecom, banking, finance, and insurance, logistics, and many others, which is another 16 different sectors. So therefore, depending on your need, we have the ability to provide you talent. What we plan to do, and we signed the MOU because we have been having talks with Business Sweden on this issue, is to link, because our ambition is to be the skill capital of the world, given the fact that we have talent as well as the population that's growing. And therefore, the idea is, depending upon where you need people, supposing you have business in a third country and you require a specific kind of manpower, we should be able to provide that. If you require it within India, we could do that. You require it in Stockholm or in Sweden, we can do that. So different ways by which we could engage, and we are very pleased to be of help. Thanks.
Thank you. I turn to Karyo and to build on that opportunity further.
Thank you so much. Excellencies, panelists, dear friends of India and Sweden. First of all, let me say how proud and happy I am to be here. Me and my family, we are almost obsessed with India. Our honeymoon went to India. We have 3 sons. All of them carry Indian names. And we have a country place which carries also an Indian-inspired name. So we love India, and anything that we can do to assist the bilateral relations, we're happy to do. I represent EF Education First, and we're the world's largest private education company. And we have lots of experience working with Indians, although we're 50,000 staff and we employ about 1,000 Indians around the world, 500 of them in India and 500 in the rest of the world. We're very proud of their skills, but when we try to give them career opportunities in the EF world, we still have to reskill and continuously develop the staff. And that's not only for the Indians. But we also train tens of thousands of Indians around the world. We have the world's largest graduate business school, for instance. And there are some skills that typically can be improved. And those are primarily soft skills. And I'd like to focus on that for a minute, because I think it's incredibly important to, apart from obviously the regulatory challenges, and I know Marie and the Chamber of Commerce and all of the Swedish government authorities are working on that to simplify. But let me touch upon the soft skills. At our graduate business school, we look at some of the soft skills that are important. So presentation, negotiation, and other skills that will make the very talented, the big talent pool in India, become businessmen and women in the 21st century. And we see that historically the educational system is not only in India, but there is, as the minister said, there's a skills gap between what the educational system is producing currently and what the labor market is requesting. And I think here we have a fantastic joint opportunity to work on reducing that skills gap. In my daily job, I advise governments around the world, as well as big corporations, on educational reform in the case of governments, but in terms of corporate education. And since we have both corporate and public clients, we have surveyed then, and we have looked at this from both sides. And one key takeaway is that public institutions, so academic institutions, don't talk to the corporate sector about the skills that are needed. So it has to start with that, obviously. And I think here also Swedish companies can provide a lot of help, or international companies in India, so that the Indian educational authorities don't just talk to the local Indian companies, but also international companies to see what skills are needed. And then I think the solution is public-private partnerships. We need to work, across borders. So public and private institutions, both in India and in Sweden and elsewhere, need to come together to try to get the skills to where they need to be. And this MOU that has just been signed, I think is a great starting point, but it has to be filled with concrete projects. And if we do that, and if we manage to upskill the current talent pool and equip them with skills like communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking, then what will happen is you will have innovation, you will have entrepreneurship, you will have job creation, economic growth. And also speaking about the last session here, if you also include all of the women in that, and also transfer international kind of best practices, then India's growth is not going to stop at 7%. It's going to be even higher. So we look forward to assisting that. It's a gigantic task, but only if we work together cross-border and in public-private partnerships are we going to be able to move the needle. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Devashish has even been working here in Sweden, so your comments will be very valuable.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Ambassador, for giving the vision to this year-long event and this business day. I'm very happy to be part of this, sharing our experiences on Skill India. Skill India is not only about skills in India here, but also skills in India, where Swedish and Indian companies work with. So as in the earlier speeches we heard that over 200,000 people are employed by Swedish companies directly and indirectly. And if you take then the Indian companies, the numbers are nearly double that who are working for Swedish organizations. So I represent Larsen & Toubro Infotech, or LTI as we are called. Our roots are in Scandinavia, and I don't know if there's a presentation. Just a brief to some of you who do not know us. We have roots which started from Scandinavia, and we are an organization which is 75 years young. And we are called by some sections of society as builders to the nation in India and also beyond today. 3,000 work permits is what you mentioned today, and we are a significant consumer of that, perhaps about 10% of that, having our people come here, go back and work and extend it. The culture is also not only about skills, is about how Swedish society and Indian society are working together, both on work front as well as on culture and family front. This also extends to education, to schools, where they live. And there are certain challenges right now we have in housing for Indians coming here and schools, which I'm sure, Madam, you have the attention and also the authorities here. So this is something, I do not want to read through the entire thing. It just gives you the opportunity which exists with the number of students which is coming out from the universities in India. And there is a skill gap in Sweden, which we are able to address in India as well as in Sweden. We are making Swedish companies more competitive, both in the manufacturing sector, in the financial sector, also making Swedish companies adapt to Indian conditions, because we brought in a lot of Swedish companies to India. So it is a journey, and we also from the other panelists, as we know, this is not only about skills, it's also about social skills. How do you communicate? How do you understand each other better? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I had a couple of questions here, but I think we covered so many of them in these great points that were raised. And now we understand the need from Sweden. We understand that the government and the private sector should be engaged together to build. I think when it comes to India, we have a pretty aggressive skill development agenda and in various fields. And we also have companies here that are recruiting. Hearing all of this, one question comes to my mind, and that is that these people that we are recruiting here, that are coming from India, they are highly mobile people, obviously. And they come with some skills, they develop a lot of skills while they work here. They don't really integrate with society, they live on the surface because they are mobile and always looking at mobility. I think one of the big questions is how do you manage to retain them? So you actually have built this up for the future, and we don't constantly have the same discussion. And I have that question for you. And I also have it for Mr. Manish, that what is it that we can inculcate already in the skills that actually make them want to kind of follow a path and get the loyalty towards what they are doing? Because I know that in India, you can start to see people move between companies and jobs and jump very fast, and they take with them a huge set of skills. So that's really my question. How do we retain and how do we make sure that we're building for the future?
Of course, that is important, but mobility is not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's actually a good thing, not only for a company or an organization, but also for a city to have a certain mobility, to have people moving in, moving out, and maybe, as a city, you should start thinking like, universities, having a Stockholm Alumni Association out there in the world and ambassadors, so sort of the global networked society. That being said, of course, we have to be on our toes every single day and improve our attractiveness. And broadly speaking, it's about quality of life, but it's also about business opportunities. It's about the hard aspects, competitive tax environments, a bureaucracy that is efficient and effective, so on and so forth. But it's also about cultural values and sort of the broader offering to skilled people that are here.
And if I may comment as well on that, I think I'm with Maria that mobility is great, and I think it's important that the skilled Indian workforce that come to Sweden, they should also bring best practices back to India at one point in time. However, having said that, if you want the relationship to stay there and be an extended period of time, then I think it's extremely important to provide good opportunities for spouses. It's extremely important to integrate more into society. Secondly, actually, in the long run, I think exchange students from India should go up significantly, because not only do you build a more long-term commitment to Sweden as a country and as a culture through the studies, because that's when you can immerse yourself, but it's also an opportunity for you as an Indian student to do internships and engage with Swedish companies and then simplify the work permit and everything and get a job and so on. So I really encourage Indian students to come to Sweden, and vice versa, of course, to build the bridges between the two countries. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think mobility, I too believe, is actually good. It's good both for Sweden and for India, in my view. What I would say is that I think the current generation, what I'm observing, is quite ambitious, likes to move, and I don't think so. This is because of an inability to adjust. India is quite diverse, therefore most of the people find diversity quite okay for them. What really matters is your ability to integrate to a new place, and also the fact that do you find a job challenging enough? Either it has to be just enough that if it is too much, then people actually leave. That's what happens. So it could be from the social side, it could be from professional side. The degree to which you face difficulty, that really matters. And when it's very, very easy, then also people actually leave the job. So our observation is that it should be just tough enough that it really excites him. It should not be so tough that he or she finds it difficult to actually continue in that environment. And if it's too soft, that also might actually bore the person, and therefore they'll go on to look for some other job. So getting that right balance, I think, is important, and that is a job of both the sides, I would assume.
Yeah, and Maria is so right. You have this mobility which has its pluses, but of course we also see if they come to Sweden and then go away and settle in third country, then you lost out some of it. And how do you keep the people excited in jobs, as you mentioned. But we are also seeing mobility between different cities in Sweden, from Gothenburg to here, from Malmö to here, or the reverse. So we are also seeing Indians coming here, moving to different cities in a positive sense, and also sharing this with their colleagues in the rest of the world, in US, Canada. So we are seeing people from also Canada, US, coming here and enjoying life here, even though the take-home pay may be slightly less because of quality of living. So that's also a positive of the mobility factor. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that was very interesting. Time is a constraint, so I'd just like to give all of you like one last word to leave the audience with, and we stop there. Maria?
Again, there are so many things that Sweden, Swedish companies, and Swedish people can learn from India, and in Indian companies, and vice versa. So this is about sort of a mutual relationship, and I think it was very interesting. And I also believe that we, as a country, collectively, Sweden, we have to update our image of India. And the example I want to give is that a few years back, an Indian company in Sweden was awarded an award for best working conditions and best working environment in Sweden. And that was something I would believe that if you ask Swedish people 15, 20 years ago, would you believe that an Indian company will win this award? Most people would have said no, and that is how fast the world is changing, and that is encouraging.
You asked for one word, opportunities, I would say. I'm just so impressed by today and the opportunities that lies ahead of us. The growth perspectives of India, but the bilateral relationships between Sweden and India can explode if we, continue to exchange ideas and knowledge and staff across borders. So a beginning of a wonderful journey together.
Thank you.
Great opportunities.
From my side, I think I would like to say that National Skill Development Corporation would be very happy to be a one-stop shop for any Swedish company wanting to take help from India, either from the business or from the government. We could assist you with both because we are a joint venture partnership between government and the private sector. Also, to get a little more concrete, because you asked for getting a little concrete with MOU, I would like to offer that we can actually take on secondment any person that you might want to assign from a Swedish company to work with us for 6 months to get a sense of how really does the Indian system work, because that then can actually provide you a basis for utilizing the opportunity that exists out there. Thank you.
Great idea.
Yeah. And thank you. I think Indians would love to come and stay. They are treated with equal respect here. And this is told by my colleagues here who come much more than in other parts of the world. Some of the infrastructure issues, I'm sure, will get settled over a period of time. And then we will have this grow manifold. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.